Hi everyone, welcome to Make It Meaningful. I'm Girl Jen Gallacher. So this week we're going to talk about storytelling. So sometimes I am guilty of telling my children stories from just my perspective. I don't think about what they're thinking about. I don't think about what was important to them. I just charge ahead and I tell the story as I saw it. Now, while I appreciate the scrapbooks, sometimes I'm trying to create these scrapbooks for the kids. And so I don't want to just focus on things that are important to me. I want to focus on things that are important to my two sons and my daughter. So here's a way that I want to do that this week. So I was thinking about how can I approach an event from either my son's perspective or my daughter's perspective, or just a different way of approaching it so that I really get a feel for them and their personality. And I was thinking about my youngest son, James. Now, James is a hilarious kid and has been from the time he could talk. He talked early on and he talked a lot, and he would say the most profound things, and he was just this little body, and out of his mouth would come these thoughts and ideas or perceptions that would stop us all in our track and we would start giggling. In fact, still to this day, I always ask why we're laughing, and it's not because it's funny or anything like that. It's simply, it's hard to believe that someone this young could come up with something so intelligent. So for today's layout, I wanted to include some of the Jamesisms, or the perspective that James has on life. And it's a funny perspective. And I think if I had tried to tell this story solely from my perspective, I would have missed out on some of the details. So here's the challenge this week. Again, these are not formal challenges. Nothing happens when you do them. I just like to see that you are working with me and having fun with me. So the challenge is I want you to think about how you can tell the story from somebody else's perspective, not yours. You're telling the story, but tell it from their perspective. It could be an interview. It could be a quote that they say. You could even ask them specifically to write their own journaling. You could recall an event in which they discussed it in great detail, and you'd simply use that for your journaling. So that's how I want you to approach storytelling this week. So let's go ahead and make this particular layout about my funny son, James. So I talked about how I wanted to create some journaling based on things that my son said. So what I did is I brainstormed some of the funny things that he said that have kind of become legendary in our home. And then I opened up a new document in my Photoshop program, and I just created different layers with different colors of text and different fonts, and I just mixed it all up. This is something that I enjoy doing. If you don't have a familiarity with Photoshop or a word art program, because you can do these also with text boxes, another thing that you can do is just use up your sticker sheets. You have probably gobs and gobs of alpha sticker sheets, and I'll suggest them in the 2P store in case you'd rather do it this way. But think of a clever way that you can create some journaling. So I printed this out on some photo paper. You can see it's HP photo paper because I wanted the colors to be as vibrant as possible. You can also try document paper or the smooth side of white cardstock. So I'm going to be doing a double page layout today, and I'm going to do an 8.5 by 11 inch double page layout. So I'm going to start with the left side of the layout first. And because the journaling takes up most of this side of the layout, it will come together fairly quickly. To the back part of this journaling, I'm going to add a Studio Calico fabric tag. And then I have some blue twine, and I will just tie that on the back. And these are canvas, and you can write on them and you can stamp on them. You can pretty much do whatever you want to them, but I love the texture of them. So to the back, I am going to temporarily place my paper down so I can get a feel for where I want this notes tag to go. All right, now I can place my large journaling block down. And your journaling block can take as much of the layout space as you want. It's up to you. I know Shamel asked on the garden, or rather the regular general scrapbooking board, what you like for white space. And so you kind of have to determine for yourself how much white space you like kind of on a layout. So I'm going to be using some crepe paper chipboard elements. This is a frame and this is a die cut. It's all from the same packaging. I'll link you to several. They have different kinds. And then these tickets are fussy cut from pattern paper, also from the crepe paper collection. And I just picked out different tickets and colors that I liked, and then I fussy cut them. You can also get them in the die cut kit here, but I wanted pattern paper. I'm going to add a photo to this frame. And because I'm discussing how my son is silly, I tried to pick a photo that was silly to match. I want to make sure that you can see him in the photo. I don't know what it is about boys, but they think they have to ham it up for the camera. I'm sure girls do as well, but this little guy really likes to ham it up. Then this particular tab is a sticker from Bella Boulevard. It's from their family collection, but it had those rich blues that I wanted to use here. So I'm going to use it on the layout here, and I'm mixing and matching a lot of different companies' die cuts and pattern papers, and I just used colors that worked well together so I could use as many different ones as I wanted. This particular sticker is also from the Bella Boulevard sheet. I'll include that. I don't want to overlap too much of the photo, and I don't want to go off the page. The sticker across the bottom. I like things that use a couple of different fonts. This is also from the sticker sheet. This is a large alpha sheet that also has tabs and embellishments and a great font. This would be a wonderful font if you wanted to do your journaling, and you can use some of these smaller word strips to create your journaling. Now what I'll do is I want to create a border that is about the same width as the paper I've cut. So I'm going to trim this down just a little bit. And I've left it on the backing so that I can use any part of the rest of the sticker that I want. And we'll overlap that bottom edge. Now you can also add some decorative embellishments, but we'll come back later once I get the second sheet of the layout done. But the first one came together fairly well. To the top I'm going to add those fussy cut tickets. Again, if you have die cuts, you can use those as well, or stickers. But you can also use leftover pieces of your pattern paper. It's up to you. So let's go ahead and start the second page, and then based on whatever I put on the second page, I can bring in additional embellishments to marry the two pages together. So for the second side of the paper, I'm going to use some of the crepe pattern paper that matches the die cuts and things that I've used on this side. It has instructions on how to fold a paper airplane on one side, and then it has pattern paper on the other. And to marry the two sides of the page, I am going to add a sheet of cardstock. There's a couple other things that I've prepped ahead of time, such as fussy cutting additional items, and we can start adding to the layout based on some of the same items that we used on the left side we can now use on the right side. So the first thing that I did was I printed some additional journaling about this particular layout, and this is how you can both incorporate someone else's story and your feelings about the story in a layout. So you start with the things perhaps on one side of the layout that they would say, and then you can give your perspective on the other side of the layout, or you can dedicate it completely to their thoughts and feelings. So I talked about how I'm proud of the way he mentions and brings up things that he feels about, and that's what this journaling says. So something fun that I wanted to do is first I wanted to bring in some of the stark white over to this side of the page. And the second thing I wanted to do is I wanted to actually incorporate some paper airplanes on this page. So even though typically when I add an embellishment, I often lecture about make sure it has meaning, but sometimes it's just fun to include a fun element. So to create the paper airplanes, I just took printer paper because it's a little thinner and easy to manipulate. And I am by no means a paper airplane instructor, and my son would be appalled. But basically I took a sheet of pattern paper. It's probably about 1 inch by 1 3/4 inches. I folded it down the long part of the fold, and then I fold down a triangle, and I fold down another triangle, and then I fold down the long piece, and I'm just creating a paper airplane. By all means, if you actually know how to create a paper airplane, use your skills. But I wanted a nice long airplane. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to machine stitch these down the side of the page. And I'm going to do that with some yellow stitching ink to match the yellow that is over here on this page in this text box. So I'm going to do that off camera and then show you what it looks like. I am not going to stitch it both to the cardstock and the pattern paper, because if I mess up, I only have one sheet of this pattern paper. So I'm going to just stitch it to this cardstock, which is not yet attached. Then if I mess up, I can always just do this piece again. So let me do that again off camera and I'll show you what it looks like. So here is what it looks like. You can see the lines are machine stitched down the very folded part, and it will lose its shape a little bit once you get it into the sheet protectors, but it will give the illusion and create the sense of paper airplanes, which is the fun part. You can even have your son or daughter create some origami art for your page. But it's just a fun dimensional piece, and then it helps match that stark white on the other side. Back on the left side, I'm going to add a few embellishments. I'm going to add some gray washi tape to marry the bottom sticker and that top sticker. And then I have 2 yellow buttons that I'm going to tie with twine. And I'll just use a glue dot to attach these right on top of that tape. And that just brings a little bit more texture to that side of the page. So I'm going to add some washi tape on this side as well. Just place it along the bottom here. Try to do some of the same things on both sides. We'll wrap it around, and I'm going to add another chipboard tape to this side of the layout. We'll add some of the tickets that I've fussy cut. Just creating some layers here. And I want to make sure that I can still read that. It does say admit 1. Bring in some yellow with the yellow ticket. So we can add some adhesive to the back. Try not to smush those paper airplanes down too much. If they do smush down, just use your fingers and again plump them back up. Then to the side here, I'm going to add a title, and I'm going to do it with a brush script. And I'm going to overlap the start of the tape. And I just want to make sure I have enough room for this Y, which is a little longer. I don't want to cover up any of my words. And I'm going to say what? To ask the question of what my son just said. I like this particular font because it has both large and small. And the letters can be kind of fun. Again, that brings some of that white over to the other side of the layout. Once you get the placement right, then you can smush it down a little bit. You'll notice that I added more of this blue cardstock around the craft cardstock because I noticed that it looked a little bit empty. So we'll go ahead and re-adhere that. Sometimes when I get into a layout, I realize something is missing and I want to add a little bit to it. Now we can place it back down on the layout. And again, you can fix your paper airplanes fairly easily. To bring in some more yellow, I'm going to use some enamel dots. We'll just place them right on top of the orange tape die cut. That brings some of that yellow to the other side. And then here at the bottom, I'm going to use another Bella Boulevard sticker. Again, I want to try and trim it so that it fits across the bottom of the layout. And this particular one is a grid shape, so it makes cutting a little bit easier. And then something fun to go at the top, you can look back at your stickers and you can pick some stickers that would go well here. Bring in one of these orange, and I'll show you a little trick that I like to do. Some manufacturers create labels that you can then fold, which are awesome for things like mini albums, so when you turn them over. But since I don't need that for a mini album, then I'm going to tear it in half and put this sticker back on the sticker backing. And that allows me to save it for another time. And then finally to the sticker, I'm going to add one final die cut from the Create Paper die cut shapes. And it's an arrow. Bring some of that teal blue up to the top. And these are sticky if you'd rather use the sticker on the back. So you have the option of either adding a strong adhesive or you can peel the sticker backing off. So there you have a layout that uses my son's perspective as the main part of the journaling. I could have left off my part of the journaling, but I decided to keep it on. Thank you for joining me for this week's Make It Meaningful. Be sure to subscribe to the Two Piece YouTube channel so you don't miss out on this Friday weekly video series.